everyone. Welcome back to Tennis Picks and Bets here on the Mayo Media Network. I am your host, John, at JR Tweets Tennis on Twitter. We are on to day 6, which will wrap up the third round from the U.S. Open in New York City as we head towards the second week and the business end of the final Grand Slam of the season. Before we get to the picks, make sure you subscribe to the Mayo Media Network and check that bell to make sure you get all the notifications for their videos across all sports. And of course, like this video and comment with your favorite play in the comment section below. And if you prefer an audio form, daily fantasy sports, picks and bets, the mix has you covered. Rate, review, subscribe over there. All right, to wrap up the third round, 3 plays for you. 1 from the women's draw, 2 from the men's. We'll begin with the women's side of things. We're going to back Ajla Tomljanovic plus 4.5 games against Karolina Pliskova in this spot, coming in at minus 108. The play because, look, we see a very similar matchup to what Karolina Pliskova had in her last match against Amanda Anisimova. It's another tall, big serving, big forehand coming at her from the in the form of the Aussie Ajla Tomljanovic. And I have trouble seeing her covering such a big spread. If this was 3 games, it might make a little more sense. But I think Ajla Tomljanovic has the power to potentially take a set from Karolina Pliskova, as Anisimova did. She has the potential to force tie breaks. And when you do that, covering a spread of 4.5 is really going to take some work on return from Pliskova. And I'm not sure that is the most coverable, if you will, number. I think Ajla Tomljanovic has come through her matches in impressive fashion, taking out Katie Volinitz, someone who's not the best, probably not ready for Grand Slam main draws in terms of competing just yet, but she did it 6-3, 6-1 in very impressive fashion, did what she needed to do and got away from that match relatively quickly, didn't put too much tennis on her body so she could conserve it for future rounds. Petra Martic 7-6, 6-4. Pretty, again, straight sets, a little closer this time, but Martic has that backhand slice that can bother you if you're tall and you have to reach down to find that ball. And also has a decent serve herself. So still a respectable win there, despite Petra not being in the best of form. The line had that as a relatively close, and I think a straight sets win is something Ajla will be happy with. And again, she profiles very similar to Amanda Anisimova, who just about eliminated Karolina Pliskova in the second round. It took a third set tiebreak. I think it was 9-7. It was an extended tiebreak for Karolina to come through. It was really entertaining, and I think in this spot we can rely on Ajla Tomljanovic to try and cover that kind of rather big spread once again. We'll move over to the men's side for the other 2 picks. The first will be Gael Monfils at plus 142 against Jannik Sinner. Jannik Sinner, one of the more vaunted young players on tour. He's no longer a prospect. Look, he's still very young. Can't call him a prospect anymore. He's got titles. He's one of the guys that people expect as, of the younger generation, expect to be one of the first to win a Grand Slam title. My issue, not the best venue for it. These courts used to be relatively slow. This year, they've picked up the pace a little bit. They've changed surfaces to a little bit faster of a hard court. And as a result, his return game isn't the most pretty. And it's shown in the score lines. Last round against Zach Svajda, a young American who hasn't had a ton of success at tour level, but whose footwork and hustle and return game is so fun to watch. We saw really close sets in a match where Jannik Sinner was a heavy, heavy favorite. We're talking worse than minus 1,000 to back on the money line. He needed 4 sets and won a couple in relatively close fashion as well. So now he's playing Gael Monfils, and there's a few things that I like about Gael's game. 1, he's got that big serve. 2, when he's on, he can beat anyone. He's one of the better players on tour when his game is on. We just see him from tournament to tournament. You don't know which Gael is going to show up. Clearly, we're at a Grand Slam. He's into the third round. He's clearly motivated, and when he is, watch out. He's got that big serve. He's got a great, consistent ground game, and he is by far the most athletic player you will find on tour. That bodes well against someone like Monfils, who's going to bring a lot of power and can change directions on you. You're going to have to run down a lot of balls, but you're also going to be able to, with your defense, draw out some errors from the young Jannik Sinner. And of course, your service holds should be a bit easier on a relatively quick surface, considering his movement isn't the greatest, his return game isn't the greatest. So we're going to take this as our underdog of the day here at plus 142 and back the Frenchman Gael Monfils to take out the young stud in Jannik Sinner. Finally, I want to take a pick'em. And here we're going to have Jenson Brooksby taking on Aslan Karatsev. And this is another good match for Jenson Brooksby. Aslan Karatsev has the power. We spoke about it in the last video. He did win the match. He didn't cover the spread that we needed, though. Losing the first 2 sets to Jordan Thompson, not the greatest. He really didn't find himself in too many return games, and that's something that is a little bit disappointing from him. He does get the comeback victory, but it was far too close for comfort. And of course, a long 5-setter like that, I wonder if that's going to carry over in his legs into this match. He is pretty fit, so it's not too much of an issue. But I still like Jenson Brooksby at -110 here. The stylistic matchup profiles really well for the young American. He's one of the breakout players or most improved players of the year from the Challenger Tour right to tour level. He's now found himself in the 3rd round of his home Grand Slam, and he's got a really interesting game. He's relatively tall, but doesn't have the typical serve and power game. He's much more of a changing of the direction. He's going to defend, he's going to angle, and he can wear you down. We saw it against Taylor Fritz in the last round. They played 3 tight sets, and then he kind of ran away with the 4th. Taylor Fritz was kind of fatiguing in the 4th set against Alex de Minaur as well in the prior round, but just edged through that 4th set to close it out. This time, not so much. He loses in 4 as his gas tank gets emptier. Jenson Brooksby can do that to just about anyone, and he's also got the ability to grind Aslan Karatsev down. We see how good Karatsev's game can be when he's finding consistency with his power. He's able to beat the likes of Novak Djokovic, which we saw in Belgrade earlier this season. He's able to go deep in Grand Slams, which we saw in Australia earlier this season. He's a really, really talented player, but the last few months, the consistency hasn't been there. He's been so error-prone, he has struggled to win more than 1 match at any given tournament, and that is not what you want to be doing against the likes of Jenson Brooksby, who is an absolute wall from the baseline and can wait those errors out over and over and over again. So at -110, I have this one closer to -135, -140, and I think that discrepancy is plenty to give us a nice edge here to play and try and exploit this market. Those are the 3 plays for Saturday, day 6 of the US Open. Again, make sure you're subscribed to the channel as we head into the 2nd week where we have the later rounds and the bigger names taking center stage. We'll have videos for you every day throughout the next week as well. Thanks for watching, everyone.